A tort is a civil wrong other than a claim for a breach of contract for which a right of civil action for damages may arise. It is an act of omission of the defendant that creates an infringement of an interest of the plaintiff that will recognise, and which involves the plaintiff proving on the balance of probabilities that their version of the fact is more believable. The law of tort is an area that often only becomes relevant to people and businesses after the happening of a loss-making event. Contract law is concerned with the enforcement of promises and seeks compensation if there is a breach of contract. Tort law, however, is concerned with the protection of rights. These rights are mostly derived from case law and include the right of protection to one's person, reputation, property, business and economic interests. A direct tort, also known as an intentional tort, is based on an action known as trespass. A direct tort is one where a defendant intentionally carries out a wrongful act that directly causes harm to the plaintiff. A direct tort can be trespass to the person, to land or to goods, defamation, or economic tort such as intimidation, interference with contractual relations, conspiracy, and unfair relations. An indirect tort, also known as an unintentional tort, is based on a legal action known as action on the case. An indirect tort is one where a defendant unintentionally carries out a wrongful act that directly causes harm to the plaintiff. The best known indirect tort is negligence. Negligence is a recent development in the law of torts and can be traced back to its modern form in the case of Donoghue v Stevenson in 1932. So now we look at the case of Donoghue v Stevenson. In 1928, Mrs. Donoghue, who is the plaintiff, went into a cafe in Scotland with a friend. The friend brought her a bottle of ginger beer, which was manufactured by Stevenson, who is the defendant. He had sold the ginger beer to the distributor, who sold it on, and eventually it reached the cafe shopkeeper. The bottle containing the ginger beer was of a dark colour and sealed by a metal cap, making inspection of the contents impossible. Mrs. Donoghue had no reason to suspect that the bottle contained anything but ginger beer. The shopkeeper poured some of the ginger beer over ice cream in a glass, which Mrs. Donoghue drank. The friend then proceeded to pour some of the ginger beer into Mrs. Donoghue's glass, and it was at this point, it was alleged, the decomposed remains of a snail appeared. Mrs. Donoghue claimed to have suffered severe shock, which is now referred to as mental harm, as a result. Mrs. Donoghue sought to recover damages from Stevenson, claiming that the presence of the snail was due to negligence. She claimed that he had a duty of care to provide a system that would ensure snails could not get into ginger beer bottles, and that he had failed in his duty. The manufacturer of the goods owes a duty of care to take reasonable care in the preparation of such goods where there is no reasonable possibility of examination of the produce before they reach the ultimate consumer, and where the manufacturer knows that the absence of reasonable care on their part will result in an injury to the consumer's life or property. By a majority decision of 3-2, the House of Lords held that the plaintiff was entitled to recover damages against the manufacturer in negligence. It was said that any person who manufactures products in such a way that there is no reasonable possibility of examination before they reach the ultimate consumer, and who knows that the absence of reasonable care on their part will result in an injury to the consumer's life or property owes a duty of care. The duty of care in this case was between the manufacturer, who was Stevenson, and the plaintiff, who was Mrs. Donahue. Thank you.